They thought the stage was theirs, a glittering gala, a night of power and pride. But in front of hundreds, a man who had worked his entire life to rise to the top was reduced to a cruel joke. Laughter echoed, masks of wealth and elegance hiding something far uglier. What none of them knew was that one moment of arrogance would set off a chain of events no fortune could stop. How does a single insult unravel an empire worth billions? This story reveals the answer. Marcus Ellison was no stranger to hard work. Born in a small neighborhood where opportunities were scarce, he had clawed his way into boardrooms where few like him were ever invited. His brilliance wasn't just in numbers and strategy, it was in his ability to see possibility where others saw risk. Years of late nights, missed celebrations, and sacrifices had built him into the CEO of a company valued in the billions. But behind the tailored suits and polished speeches was a man who never forgot the looks he once received, the doubt in people's eyes, the quiet dismissal before he even spoke. Still, Marcus pressed forward, believing that success could silence prejudice. That evening, as he prepared for the city's most exclusive gala, Marcus wasn't thinking about proving himself. For once, he allowed himself to breathe, to stand tall in a room full of the most powerful families in business. It was supposed to be a celebration, a symbol that he had finally earned his place among the elite. What Marcus didn't know was that for some, his very presence was an offense. And before the night ended, the respect he had fought for would be stripped away in front of everyone watching. The ballroom glittered with chandeliers, laughter, and the clinking of champagne glasses. Marcus moved through the crowd with the ease of a man who had finally been accepted, or so he thought. Everywhere he turned, there were nods of acknowledgement, flashes of respect. Tonight was supposed to prove that barriers had been broken. But then it began. A whisper at first, sharp enough to cut through the music. A joke, his name twisted, his success questioned. He pretended not to hear, but others did. Eyes darted away, shoulders stiffened, yet no one spoke. The laughter grew bolder. From the stage, one of the hosts, a son of the Billionaire family, smiled the kind of smile that wasn't meant for warmth. "Ladies and gentlemen," he called, microphone in hand, "let's give a hand to our special guest." The pause that followed carried weight. Marcus felt it before the words landed. Proof that anyone can climb if they know the right people. The room erupted in laughter, not applause. Heat rushed to Marcus's face. His chest tightened. Years of sacrifice reduced to a punchline in seconds. Cameras flashed, not to honor him, but to capture the humiliation. He stood frozen, every instinct telling him to stay composed. To react would be to confirm their expectations. Yet silence felt like surrender. He could almost hear his father's voice in his head. "Never let them see you break." So he smiled, though his hands trembled at his side. But it didn't stop there. Another quip followed. Then another, each more cruel than the last. They mocked his background, his education, even the way he spoke. Behind their polished tuxedos and jeweled gowns was something raw and ugly. The belief that no amount of achievement could make him equal. And the crowd? They watched. Some shifted uncomfortably, others sipped their drinks. No one intervened. It was easier to laugh than to challenge power. Easier to let the cruelty play out than to stand beside the man being targeted. Marcus's mind raced. He thought of his employees, the hundreds of families who depended on his leadership. He thought of the young men and women who saw him as proof that success was possible. If they saw him break now, what would that mean? So he endured. For every insult, he stood straighter. For every laugh, he forced himself to hold eye contact. The humiliation cut deep, but beneath it, a fire was building. Because what the billionaires didn't realize was this. Marcus wasn't just a guest. He was a man with influence, with allies, with the power to move pieces they couldn't see. And as the night dragged on, while they celebrated their cruelty, Marcus was already planning his next move. They thought they had broken him. They had no idea they had just set the stage for their downfall. The laughter was still echoing when Marcus's phone buzzed in his pocket. He excused himself from the table, every step heavy with humiliation, and slipped into a quiet corner of the ballroom. His hand shook as he answered. On the other end was a voice calm, steady, and dangerous. Marcus, we saw everything. It was one of his closest allies, a partner who managed billions in investments. Word of the incident had already spread beyond the ballroom. Guests had posted clips, whispers were turning into headlines, and the world was watching. Back inside, the billionaire family basked in their triumph, unaware of the storm gathering beyond those gilded doors. Marcus stared at them from a distance, their smug smiles, their careless cruelty. They thought they had destroyed him, that their wealth made them untouchable. But in that moment, Marcus realized something powerful. Their empire was far more fragile than his dignity. Another call came through, then another. Each voice carried the same message. We stand with you. The allies they had underestimated, the networks they had dismissed, were now aligning behind Marcus. The air in the ballroom shifted. Screens lit up with breaking news. Reporters were outside. Investors were calling. Billions of dollars hung in the balance. And for the first time, it wasn't Marcus on trial. It was them. The very stage they used to humiliate him was about to become the stage of their undoing. Because one call, one decision could unravel everything they had built. Marcus exhaled, steady now, his humiliation sharpening into resolve. He stepped forward, back toward the crowd, carrying not shame, but power. And in that moment, one thought pulsed louder than the music, louder than the laughter. They had mocked the wrong man. By the end of that night, the ballroom was no longer filled with laughter. The headlines were everywhere. Billionaire family humiliates black CEO at Gala. Investors withdrew, deals collapsed, and the empire that once looked untouchable began to crumble, piece by piece. Marcus didn't celebrate their downfall. That wasn't who he was. But the weight of what had happened lingered. He had spent a lifetime proving his worth, only to be reminded, so publicly, that for some, his skin color would always overshadow his achievements. Still, something changed that night. For every cruel word spoken on that stage, there were thousands of voices rising in his defense. Messages poured in from young professionals, students, and strangers across the world. You reminded me not to give up. You showed us dignity in the face of hate. Marcus had endured humiliation, but he had also become a symbol, proof that silence in the face of racism is complicity, and that standing tall, even when mocked, can shake the foundations of power. But his story is not just his. It reflects a truth that stretches far beyond a ballroom. Racism is not confined to back alleys or whispered slurs. It hides in boardrooms, on stages, in places draped in wealth and prestige. So the question remains, not just for Marcus, but for all of us. How many more voices must be silenced, mocked, or dismissed before we decide enough is enough? This wasn't just one man's fight. It's a call to every person watching, to notice, to speak, to act. Because racism doesn't end with headlines. It ends when we refuse to laugh along, when we choose courage over comfort. Will you? Disclaimer: the stories shared on this channel are completely fictional and created only for entertainment purposes. We believe in a world where every individual enjoys equal rights under the law and where society continues to grow in fairness, progress, and unity. Our goal is to share thought-provoking stories that inspire positive change. Any resemblance to real people, events, or organizations is purely coincidental and unintentional. These stories are not based on actual individuals or occurrences and carry no political or religious implications.